The day David's first love returned to the country. He didn't consult me, he just brought her back to our home. When I questioned him, his tone was defiant. When I was sick, he wouldn't take even a single day off. But to care for his first love, he took 2 months off. Sarah tripped over my packages, accidentally cutting her forehead. His eyes went red with concern for her, and he glared at me, coldly scolding me. I turned around and agreed to the blind date my family had arranged. Emily, I said, I've agreed to come home for the marriage alliance. Emily on the other end of the phone gasped in surprise and then laughed. Finally decided to leave that boyfriend of yours? I told you ages ago, you're from different worlds, it would never work out. Especially since he never once posted about you on his social media feed all these years. Emily's words were like a dull thorn, gently piercing the deepest part of my heart. It turned out outsiders saw it so clearly, and I was the only one who was foolishly blind. I took a deep breath and forced a light-hearted laugh. Emily, didn't you say you'd be back in Bayport from your business trip in 7 days? I'll come back in 7 days, and you can arrange for me to meet him. I hung up the phone. Suddenly, a shadow appeared behind me. David silently circled around to face me, picked up a new ceramic cup from the cabinet, and raised an eyebrow. Meeting who? Who are you going to see? My blind date. The words were on the tip of my tongue, but I didn't say them. I shook my head expressionlessly. Nothing, just a friend. My gaze fell on the brand new ceramic cup in his hand. I looked up at him. Why, did you decide to use that? The ceramic cup in his hand was one of the Disney couple cups. When I gave him this gift on Valentine's Day, David said he loved them, but immediately put them in the cabinet to gather dust. I asked him why he didn't use them. He laughed and hugged me from behind. Silly, we're saving them or when we get married. My heart felt like it was wrapped in honey. I thought he was imagining our future, our wedding day. But later, I accidentally saw Sarah's social media feed. I learned that the person who liked Disney ceramic cups was Sarah. The person David imagined using those cups with on our wedding day? It wasn't me. Now, seeing me staring blankly at the cup in his hand, David casually explained, Sarah didn't have a suitable cup to drink from, so I gave her this one to use. She happened to like it. The words he'd said about getting married were long forgotten. I swallowed the bitterness, thinking there was no future for us anyway. So I nodded. Go ahead, don't keep her waiting. David seemed a bit surprised I was being so accommodating. Finally, he came closer, ruffled my hair, and spoke with a rare gentleness. Wait for me to come back. That evening, I was buried in the study writing my resignation letter when the door suddenly opened. David stood there, alone. He shed his exhaustion, took off his coat, and came over to hug me. Ren. I instinctively closed my laptop and moved slightly away from him. Where's Sarah? Sarah was hospitalized today. The doctor said she needs to be observed further. I looked at his exhausted face, clearly worn out from worrying about Sarah. When Sarah returned to the country, she called David as soon as she got off the plane. Hearing she was blind, David rushed to pick her up like a madman. He didn't consult me, he just brought her home to stay. At first, I didn't know Sarah was his first love. I suggested she stay in a hotel, and that we could hire a nurse if she needed care. David didn't even think about it, frowning as he countered me. Ran, I don't trust anyone else to take care of her. Let Sarah stay with us for a while. Before she went abroad, she was my best friend. I promised her I'd take good care of her. Taking care of a friend seemed reasonable. But David's attitude was simply too strange. Until one day, when he went downstairs to buy something, Sarah smiled and came closer to me. Audrey, are you curious about my relationship with Dave? Actually, I was his first love. I heard after we broke up, he dated several girlfriends who looked like me. Audrey, even though I can't see, I know we must look quite alike, right? When I heard that, my whole body froze. She was right. Our faces were about 50% similar. That day, I took her for a walk downstairs, and someone asked if we were sisters. That's when I knew. After 6 years together, I was nothing more than a stand-in. Everything I'd been confused about before suddenly made sense. Why he cared so much about Sarah. When I was sick with a persistent high fever, I called David and asked him to take a day off to be with me. He was reluctant. Ran, I'm too busy with work lately. I really can't take time off. But now, to take care of Sarah, he took 2 months off directly. When the company wouldn't approve, he just resigned. Sarah wandered around the house, not being careful, and accidentally tripped over my packages in the corner. She hit her forehead on an edge and got a red mark. David's eyes went red with pain for her, and he exploded right there. For the first time, he turned a cold face to me and yelled, Audrey, If you can't put your things away properly, throw them all in the trash. Take your junk and get out. David only cared about taking Sarah to the hospital. He didn't notice me, clutching my stomach, my face pale with pain. My stomach issues had flared up again. But he never paid attention. Watching his anxious back as he left, I nodded calmly. Okay. I would give him what he wanted. He would soon never see me again. For several days in a row, I stopped asking about him and Sarah. Whatever he suggested, I agreed to it completely. David's attitude towards me actually softened quite a bit. That evening, after finishing my resignation letter and emailing it to my boss, David came in, pushy, the door open with a cup of hot water. Ren, why have you been staying up so late these past few days? He hugged me from behind, leaned in, and buried his head in my neck, his kisses light and frequent. Sarah's not here tonight, we can. David's breathing grew heavier. But I frowned and subtly avoided his touch. I'm not feeling well tonight. The desire in David's eyes slowly extinguished. He smiled gently and ruffled my hair. But I moved away, my face expressionless. Now, his touch just made me feel sick. A week earlier, in the early morning, there was thunder and lightning. Sarah fumbled her way to our room and hugged David. Dave, I'm scared. David was afraid of waking me, so he quietly helped Sarah out of the room. In the living room, he deliberately lowered his voice. Don't be scared. I'll stay in your room with you tonight. Before David went into the guest room, he even looked back at me and thoughtfully pulled the door shut. That night, as thunder and lightning raged outside, he was holding another woman, pouring out his heart. David thought I was asleep. When Sarah instinctively kissed him, he didn't refuse. Instead, he kissed her back with passion. Their movements were passionate and intense. Separated by 2 doors, I sat on the bed, hugging my knees, feeling helpless, tears streaming down my face. Then I remembered something from the past. 6 years ago, when we had just started dating, David was drunk and kissing me, mumbling indistinctly. I thought he was calling my name, but it never sounded quite right. Now, I realized it must have been Sarah. My thoughts returned to the present. I shut down my computer, turned off the study light, and turned to go back to my room. Ren. David suddenly called out from behind me. His voice sounded distant, as if through a mist. Why do I feel like you've been different lately? Has something happened? You seem so down. We promised we'd tell each other everything, no matter what. My steps pause. I slowly turned around. David stood before me, wearing loose dark gray sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking at me with a worried expression. It was like going back to the day we first met 6 years ago. That year, we had picked up the wrong umbrellas. David stood there facing me, watching me, and smiling softly. He said, Audrey, like a fated meeting in a story, don't you think us taking the wrong umbrellas was destiny? Back then, my heart would pound. But now, it had long since stopped. David slowly approached me, reaching for my hand. You're my girlfriend. I'll handle anything for you. Tell me, what's going on? My eyes welled up. I really wanted to hear him tell me himself what his relationship with Sarah truly was. Before I could say anything, David's phone rang. It was a custom ringtone, different from all his other calls. I happened to glance down and saw it. No name, just a heart emoji. That said it all. David answered without hesitation. From the other end came a girl's frightened, tearful voice. Dave, I'm so scared. I didn't want to bother you, but I'm in the hospital alone, and I fell when I got out of bed just now. I don't know what to do. David's face instantly changed. He ran into the room, changed clothes, and quickly grabbed his jacket, ready to leave. Ren, Sarah fell at the hospital and she's alone. I'm going to check on her. The words I hadn't spoken were swallowed. I smiled slightly. Go quickly. Once David's figure completely disappeared from my sight, I collapsed onto the bed, feeling all my strength drain away. The next day, I packed up all the extra things in the house. Over 6 years, I'd bought a lot of cute little trinkets, mostly couples items. David usually just found them amusing and never stopped me from buying them, but he never once used them. Over the years, they'd accumulated into a small mountain. They had all gathered dust, as if mocking how pathetic and sad I was. Most of those things were practically new. Some I just threw away, and the useful ones I listed on a second-hand website or gave away. I looked at the calendar. 3 more days. I held my water cup and looked out the window as the clouds rolled and gathered, only to quickly drift apart again. I decided to use these last 3 days to say a proper goodbye. David didn't come home all night. He finally returned the next afternoon. He seemed surprised to see me as soon as he walked in. Ren, why didn't you go to work today? I hadn't told him I'd resigned, nor did I want him to know anything about my life anymore. I said casually, I'm not feeling well today, so I took a day off. David just said oh, and turned to go back to the room to get clean clothes and things for Sarah. He probably didn't even hear what I said, and he certainly didn't care what was bothering me. I had gotten used to it ever since Sarah moved in. It felt like I was the extra one, crashing at someone else's place, while Sarah was his real girlfriend. 5 minutes later, David came out with a bag of things and placed it on the counter by the door. He looked back at me, then suddenly seemed to remember something and came over to hug me. I'm sorry, Ren. I've been so busy taking care of Sarah these past few days. She needs constant attention, and I've neglected you. I promise you, after things settle down, I'll spend proper time with you. Didn't you always want to go to Rocky Mountain National Park? How about we go hiking there in a few days? I didn't say anything. I knew there was no future for us. But David just kept smiling to himself, pulling out a small, exquisite gift box from his pocket. Ren, I bought this for you. I kept forgetting to give it to you. He opened it himself. Inside was a small ring. I didn't reach out to take it. Because just a few days ago, Sarah had shown me this very ring, bragging about it. She said David had given it to her 6 years ago, promising to marry her someday, that it was an engagement ring. Didn't know how this ring ended up back in David's hands. But I wasn't interested at all. Keep it for Sarah. Maybe she'll like it. I had finished packing. I picked up the box of discarded things and my bag, ready to leave. David was stunned. Watching my back, a sudden panic seized him. Ren, where are you going? Just going out for a walk. David took a few steps after me, then hesitated. Ren, did you see that social media post? My steps stopped. He was talking about the social media post from last night. David, who after 6 years together had never announced me publicly, had posted about Sarah last night. They were holding hands by the hospital bed. The picture showed Sarah's peaceful sleeping face. David's caption read, "Having you by my side feels like having the whole world." Many people commented below. Is this the future wife? David, you sly dog, finally revealing her after all these years. Looks like wedding bells are coming soon? Of course, there was also one reply, what do you guys know? This is Dave's first love, his goddess. I saw it but felt no ripple of emotion. I even liked it casually. But soon, the post was deleted. He probably forgot to set it to private. I had never gone through David's phone, but just a few days ago, I accidentally saw his screen light up. Out of curiosity, I glanced at it and saw that his social media feed was full of private photos marked only visible to me. I scrolled down several times. It was endless photos of Sarah. Little moments about them. Even though it had been 6 years, they still held significant weight in his heart. In that moment, I knew I had lost. Thinking of this, I smiled slightly. No, what social media feed? What did you post? David scrutinized my expression, found nothing unusual, and let out a tiny sigh of relief. Ren, when I get back, there's just one more day, and Sarah can be discharged. Once her eyes are healed, I'll have her move out of our place, and then I'll spend proper time with you. I scoffed internally. David had been looking for houses for Sarah for days already. The requirements were a villa, good conditions, a quiet environment, and meeting Sarah's specifications for lighting. I looked up at him expressionlessly. Arrange your affairs however you like. You don't need to tell me about them. David frowned when he heard this. He grabbed my arm. Ren, are you angry? The reason I'm being so good to Sarah is because I learned some things about what happened back then. She's very unfortunate. You're my girlfriend. You should try to see things from my perspective. Don't be jealous, okay? My smile grew wider. I brushed his hand away. You're overthinking it. I'm really not angry. In 2 more days, I would be gone. Good, as long as you're not angry. The day after tomorrow is our 6-year anniversary. Wait for me in the evening, and I'll take you out for a candlelight dinner. David smiled and lightly tapped my nose. He picked up his bag and left. It was surprising he even remembered our 6-year anniversary. Since he was willing to have this dinner, I decided it would be a formal farewell. We'd clear everything up and part ways amicably. But 2 nights later, I sat in the restaurant we'd booked, waiting for over 2 hours. David never showed up. Finally, by 11 p.m., the food was cold. David finally sent a text message. Sorry, Ren. Something came up with Sarah at the hospital. I have to stay with her. Go ahead and eat by yourself. I replied simply, okay. Then I quietly finished eating alone. The next day, without waiting for him to return, I picked up my suitcase and left the city. David was busy until the next afternoon before he finally had some free time. His first instinct was to open his phone and look at our chat thread. Now new messages popped up. Just one concise, prominent okay. David couldn't help but frown. Why is she so quiet lately? Smiling, he sent me a message. Silly, why haven't you been keeping tabs on me lately? Not even asking when I'm coming home? After sending the message, a smile played on his lips. On the way back, he passed a dessert shop and unconsciously stopped, buying a strawberry cake that I loved. Sarah smelled the sweet strawberries and lightly laughed, reaching out to take it. How did you know I wanted cake? David pulled his hand back, stepping away. It's not for you. His gaze lingered on the cake, holding it carefully, a hint of tenderness in his expression. It's for Ren. But half an hour passed, and there was no reply. David felt a knot tighten in his chest. After settling Sarah into the villa, he tried calling me. Silly, answer the phone. But it said the phone was off. The smile on David's face instantly froze. He knew that in our 6 years together, I had severe battery anxiety and had never once turned my phone off. David suddenly panicked. His heart pounded, and he rushed to flag down a car on the side of the road like a madman. The repeated motion of dialing my number never stopped. Answer the phone, Ren. Please, don't let anything happen. David gripped his phone tightly the whole way, veins bulging on the back of his hand. He had never felt such panic before, as if he were about to lose something. Ren. David got out of the car and quickly ran upstairs. He even rejected Sarah's call when she called him midway. He saw the cute decoration on the doorknob and breathed a sigh of relief. That felt like home. It reassured him. Ren, why aren't you answering my calls? David opened the door, his words catching in his throat. The house, there was no one there. Even the entire living room looked incredibly neat and empty. David called my name several more times. He searched through every room but couldn't find me anywhere. David suddenly panicked. He ran to the master bedroom and opened the closet door. He found that all my clothes were gone. Only his pajamas and suits hung there, all alone. How could this happen? David's face completely changed. Finally, he stopped in front of the cabinet in the living room, his hand trembling as he reached for the door, wanting to see if the things inside were still there. It turned out, the umbrella was gone too. That umbrella was the one David and I had mistakenly taken from each other the first time we met. It was how we connected, like a fated meeting. After we got together, we kept the umbrella as a token of our love, carefully put away. We even said we would take it out on the day we got married, as a witness. Unfortunately, there was no future for us. The umbrella was discarded by me along with the useless trinkets. David's eyes went red right there, and he started blowing up my phone. Meanwhile, I was taking the SIM card out of my phone. After getting off the plane, I tossed it casually into a trash can. 6 years of being foolish. 6 years of being deceived. Now, I could finally say goodbye to the past and go home to fulfill my responsibilities. Ren, over here. Emily came to pick me up early. She was dressed fashionably, with large sunglasses on her forehead that nearly covered half her face. After 6 years, she looked just as young as before. Emily. I'm back. Emily laughed and hugged me. Good to have you back. I thought you'd gone wild out there and decided you didn't need your sister or the family business anymore. Ever since my parents died in a plane crash when I was 7, my sister, 3 years older than me, willingly took on the family's heavy responsibilities. She had high emotional intelligence and intellect, was skilled at dealing with people, and handled the company's veterans from a young age. Originally, I could have lived a carefree life forever. But 3 months ago, Emily messaged me saying the company was facing an unprecedented crisis. Only a marriage alliance with Robert, the son of a rival corporation's CEO, could help our family get through this difficult time. Before, I thought I had a boyfriend. I fantasized about a bright future with David. I refused without a second thought. But now, I was willing to try the blind date with Robert. If we didn't dislike each other, then getting married wouldn't be a big deal. After all, compared to life itself, love wasn't worth much. This time, I also wanted to do something to help Emily. Under Emily's arrangement, Robert and I had our first meeting. He was a bit different from what I'd imagined. I thought he'd be a spoiled playboy, a rich and arrogant bachelor. Instead, he wore a black trench coat and walked towards me with a gentle, elegant smile. I admit, I was stunned for a moment. It turns out you shouldn't stereotype people. Ren, I'm Robert. He extended his hand like a gentleman, then helped pull out my chair, taking great care to seat me. As we were chatting, I suddenly heard a familiar voice. I looked up, and it was Sarah. I froze. Wasn't she blind? Wasn't she supposed to be in Oceanwood? How had she suddenly come to Bayport? Sarah was having dinner with a middle-aged man, showing no signs of being blind at all. As they ate, they started getting touchy and intimate. My gaze couldn't help but drift over there. My emotions were complicated. Robert also noticed my gaze and looked over. He smiled and asked, "Do you know them?" I instinctively shook my head. Sarah was David's first love. Even though there was a good chance they had rekindled their old flame, that was their business. It had nothing to do with me. Midway through, my stomach started to ache faintly. I managed to drink a few sips of hot water, but it didn't help. Suddenly, a hand reached over and offered me a box of antacids. I was a little surprised but took them. "How did you know I had a stomach ache?" Robert just smiled. "Your sister told me you've always had a sensitive stomach. Just in case, I brought them with me." Not only that, but even though it was our first meeting, Robert was incredibly attentive, thoughtful to the point of being meticulous. He seemed to have done his homework on me, so there were no awkward missteps when we interacted. I didn't dislike our first date. Soon we had a second and a third. A few days later, Robert invited Emily and me to go ice skating. Emily was resting on the side when her phone rang. It was an unknown number. When she answered, it was David's voice. "I'm looking for Audrey. Where is she? Did she go back home?" Emily chuckled and asked who he was. "He said he was my boyfriend." Emily glanced at me, talking happily with Robert, and smiled. "He used to be. Not necessarily anymore." With that, Emily hung up. On the way home, she told me about it. "That ex-boyfriend of yours called my phone." "What, you didn't exactly part ways amicably, did you?" That's when I remembered. Once, my phone battery had died, and I used his phone to call Emily. He actually remembered. I chuckled softly. There wasn't really an amicable parting. His heart was with someone else, he wasn't focused on me at all. He didn't even show up for the final goodbye. Sometimes missing someone means missing them for a lifetime. Why bother with further entanglement? After several interactions with Robert, we felt increasingly compatible and quickly started dating officially. Both families were originally aiming for a marriage alliance anyway. Seeing that I didn't dislike Robert, Emily quickly began planning our engagement party. Robert went with me to try on engagement dresses and wedding gowns. On the way, I saw David, whom I thought I'd never see again. He had actually come to Bayport to find me. When he appeared before me, he looked completely worn out. I was holding Robert's arm, intending to pretend I didn't see him and just walk past, but unexpectedly he rushed forward and grabbed my wrist. "Audrey." He called my full name, his tone filled with suppressed anger and disbelief. "Why did you leave without a word? Do you know how worried I was about you? Who is this man?" David's eyes were red, staring warily at Robert beside me. I calmly pushed his hand away. "David, we've already broken up. Please stop bothering me." David stared at me blankly. Suddenly, he gave a self-mocking laugh, his eyes turning red. He looked completely wounded. "How did I not know we broke up? Audrey, we were together for 6 years. You're just going to break up like that? Were you playing with me all along? Did you ever take me seriously?" His voice was loud. Passers-by heard the commotion and started gathering to watch. I didn't want to make a scene, I just wanted to pull Robert away from here. But David's eyes were red with emotion, and he refused to let me go no matter what I said. "Explain yourself. You said that anyone who betrayed true feelings should swallow 1,000 needles. Since he was pushing it this far, I also scoffed coldly. "David, anyone can talk to me about true feelings, but you don't have the right. After these 6 years, you and I both know exactly why you were with me. Ultimately, I was just Sarah's stand-in. Now that the real person is back, what's the point of bothering with a mere stand-in? David, stop pretending to be so sincere. Seeing you like this now just makes me sick." David seemed shocked by my words. He froze completely. "Stand-in for who?" He looked hurt and utterly disbelieving. "Did you actually think you were Sarah's stand-in all this time? Ren, you've misunderstood." He suddenly softened his tone and reached out to pull me closer, but I sharply pulled away. This act of trying to make peace after doing wrong couldn't make my heart soften anymore. In the 6 years we were together before, I was always easy to fool and easy to appease. He could push me away, then pull me back, and it always worked on me. But that was only because I was still deeply in love with David. I thought we loved each other, and that little bumps and detours were fine, because we had a long road ahead of us. But now we were over. David, whether I was a stand-in or not, you and Sarah can finally be together. No one is in your way anymore. And please, stop bothering me and my fiancé. I said this coldly. Thinking back on the humiliation I'd endured, it was nothing but self-inflicted shame. Emily was right, I should have left decisively the moment I first realized something was wrong. I pulled Robert away from the scene. Once we were somewhere private, I let go of his hand and apologized to him. I'm so sorry you had to see that. That was my ex. We've already broken up, don't worry. Robert smiled lightly and took out a handkerchief, wiping the sweat from my forehead. There wasn't a hint of annoyance on his face, instead, his smile grew even gentler. It's okay. I know. I looked up, surprised. He knew? Ren, I've been following you for years. Didn't you ever realize? That's when I realized. The good luck I thought I had before wasn't just luck, someone had been helping me behind the scenes. My incredible smooth sailing at work. Always having someone appear to help when I encountered difficulties. So that was it. Robert said he had liked me for a long time. He knew me much earlier than I knew David. He said back then, even before graduating college, he wanted to come to Oceanwood and confess his feelings to me. But he happened to see that David and I had just started dating, so he chose to step back and wait quietly. Robert's eyes were full of me as he said softly, at the time, I thought if that person could treat you very well, love and protect you your whole life, I would choose to withdraw. But I never expected that 6 years later, he would lack the foresight to actually give up such a wonderful woman like you. Ren, it seems we were the ones destined to be together after all. I smiled too. That's true. Fate really is something you can't control at all. Robert and I talked openly about our past experiences, and our relationship progressed rapidly, heating up quickly. I rarely thought of David anymore. I thought David, who had left in disappointment last time, wouldn't bother me again, but he found me once more. He saw Robert and his eyes went red with fury. Mr. Robert, you're a big shot CEO yourself. You're certainly not short on women. Why do you have to steal my girlfriend? I told you last time we met, Ren is my girlfriend. I'm not giving her up. I looked up, surprised. When had they met? When had they said such things? Robert smiled lightly and gestured behind him. David, as far as I know, isn't she your first love? As he spoke, 2 bodyguards from behind walked forward, holding a girl. The girl struggled relentlessly. It was Sarah. She hadn't expected David to be there too. When their eyes met, her face was filled with unconcealable panic. David froze, his eyes filled with coldness. Sarah, why are you here? Dave, let me explain. Sarah wasn't blind at all, she had been faking it the entire time. It was all this man. He used me. He made a bet with me, telling me to go to Oceanwood and seduce you to stay by your side. As long as I could get you to break up with Audrey, he would marry me. But he lied to me. He went back on his word. The person Sarah was pointing at with a face full of fury was my fiancé, Robert, standing beside me. They stared at each other. I also instinctively looked at Robert. Is that true? A flicker of guilt crossed Robert's eyes. He squeezed my hand and admitted frankly, it's true. I did that. Ren, I was just too worried about you being deceived, so I did some investigating and found out that David always had someone else in his heart. He never forgot his first love. When he was with you, he was just treating you like a stand-in. Ren, how could you ever be anyone's stand-in? Robert looked at me tenderly, his expression earnest. No matter what Robert said was true. David always had someone else in his heart. No matter how he tried to justify it, he couldn't erase the fact that he had indeed deceived me. And that was unforgivable. David, however, scoffed and swung a punch at Robert's face. Robert easily dodged it. Immediately, numerous bodyguards rushed in and roughly restrained David. David's eyes were red as he yelled at me. Ren, did you hear that? This man beside you is also a manipulative schemer. He's completely untrustworthy. He deliberately messed things up to break us apart. I watched David coldly, saying nothing. Finally, I had the bodyguards throw him out. Robert knelt down before me to apologize. Ren, I know I used some methods to get you away from that man. But please believe me, I just couldn't stand by and watch you being deceived. I smiled lightly and took his hand. I believe you. In front of David, Robert and I left the scene, our fingers intertwined. After that, David somehow got my phone number. He called me over a dozen times, but I impatiently rejected every call. The engagement party went smoothly. His family made a generous investment, helping Emily's company get through the crisis. We also quickly started preparing for the wedding. I specifically instructed the bodyguards around me, if David comes looking for me, don't let him in. For several months, I heard nothing more about them, until the day of the wedding. I stood on the platform in my wedding dress, saying I do with a smile on my face under the flashing lights. In that moment, I still felt a certain intense gaze fixed on me. Out of the corner of my eye, I scanned a corner of the audience seats. I saw David's figure. He left right after giving his wedding gift. After the wedding, Emily and Robert each put a company under my management. I no longer had time to just coast along like before. I started wearing high heels and suits, socializing in the business world. The last time I heard news about David was at a reception in Bayport, when I overheard a group of people from Oceanwood talking. Since our last meeting, David had sold off all his company's shares. People in their circle didn't understand why, when his company was clearly thriving, he suddenly dug his own grave. And the first love David had posted about on his social media feed? He had her beaten up and driven out of Oceanwood. I heard Sarah ended up with nothing and decided to seek revenge. When David was crossing the street, she drove straight at him, hitting him hard. Both of them were severely injured in the crash, either dead or permanently disabled. 2 months later, I suddenly remembered something. I unblocked David from my phone and, on a whim, almost opened his social media feed. Only then did I see the content of his last social media post. It was about me. It was a letter of apology, an expression of regret. He was reviewing and regretting, saying he realized his true feelings too late. He said the reason he took Sarah in back then was because he learned that she hadn't heartlessly abandoned him to go abroad, she had gotten sick and gone blind. But now he knew he had been played for a fool. And the only person he truly owed an apology to was Audrey. Reading that letter of apology, I felt nothing. I didn't know if David was alive or dead, or where Sarah had ended up. Because it truly had nothing to do with me anymore. 2 months later, I was pregnant. Robert happily held me in his arms. Wife, I hope we have a daughter who's as beautiful as you. But we'll have to keep a close eye on her. Can't let any bad guys deceive her.